Don't listen to Killer Horror Story. The podcast was called Confessions of the Condemned, and it had been Riley Morgan's guilty pleasure for 3 months. Each episode featured audio interviews with death row inmates, discussing their crimes in chilling detail. Riley knew it was dark, knew some people would judge her for listening, but she was a true crime journalism student and told herself it was research. Episode 47 was different from the start. This week, the host's voice intoned over Riley's earbuds as she jogged to the park at dawn. We have something unprecedented, an anonymous interview with a killer who has never been caught. He contacted us with proof of his crimes, details only the real killer would know. Law enforcement is aware, but his identity remains unknown. He calls himself the listener. Riley's pace slowed. An active, uncaught serial killer? That was huge. Possibly the biggest thing this podcast had ever done. The killer's voice came through, distorted by a voice modulator into something that sounded inhuman, mechanical, and cold. I've been killing for 7 years, 17 victims in 6 states, and the police have connected exactly 0 of them. Do you know why? The host's voice was shaky. Why? Because I listen. I listen to people's fears, their secrets, their vulnerabilities, and then I use them. I'm listening right now to everyone who's hearing this. I'm learning from you. Your fear is teaching me. Riley felt a chill run down her spine, despite the warm morning. This was disturbing in a way the other episodes hadn't been. This killer was talking directly to the audience, claiming to be learning from them somehow. I want to play a game with your listeners, the voice continued. I'm going to describe my next victim. If they hear this and recognize themselves, they have 72 hours to contact the police. If they don't, the mechanical laugh was bone-chilling. Well, they'll become victim number 18. Riley stopped jogging entirely, standing frozen on the park path. My next victim, the killer said slowly, savoring each word, is a woman in her early 20s. She's a student, studying journalism with a focus on true crime. She lives alone in an apartment building with poor security. She jogs every morning at dawn in the park near her building, always wearing red earbuds and listening to true crime podcasts. She has a small scar on her left knee from a childhood bicycle accident. She's listening to me right now, and she has exactly 72 hours starting now. Riley's blood turned to ice. She touched her left knee reflexively, feeling the scar through her leggings. She looked down at her red earbuds, at the jogging path she took every single morning. This had to be a coincidence. Had to be. Those were common things, right? Lots of young women studied journalism. Lots of people had scars on their knees. But the apartment building with poor security? The exact same routine every morning? Riley yanked out her earbuds and looked around the park. Dawnlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows. A few other joggers were visible in the distance, but no one was paying attention to her. No one looked suspicious. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report something. There's a podcast and a killer, and he described me. He said he's going to... Riley realized how insane this sounded. There's a man threatening to kill me. Ma'am, slow down. Has someone directly threatened you? Yes. No. I mean, sort of, he described me on a podcast. He's a serial killer, and he described his next victim, and it's me. The operator's voice took on a practiced patience that made Riley want to scream. What's the name of this podcast? Confessions of the Condemned, episode 47. Please, you have to listen to it. He knows things about me, personal things. He's been watching me. I'll send an officer to take your statement. Where are you now? Riley gave her location and waited, her heart hammering, constantly scanning the park for anyone who might be watching. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, she explained everything to Officer Martinez, who listened with growing skepticism. "Ma'am, these podcast producers often do elaborate marketing stunts. The details about you, they could have been data mined from social media. People share more online than they realize. But the scar on my knee, is there any photo of you online in shorts or a swimsuit? Any picture where that scar might be visible?" Riley thought about her Instagram, her Facebook, pictures from beach trips and summer festivals. Maybe. I don't know. That's probably how they got it. Look, we'll follow up, check with the podcast producers, but I'd be surprised if this is anything more than a promotional stunt in very poor taste. Riley wanted to believe him, wanted to think this was just marketing, just someone play with people's fears for clicks and downloads. But something in her gut told her this was real. She went home and immediately started researching. The podcast host's email address was in the show notes. Riley sent a message. "Episode 47. Describe me exactly. This isn't funny. Tell me this is fake." The response came within an hour. "We verified his authenticity before airing. Everything he's told us is checked out against closed case files he shouldn't have access to. I'm sorry. If you believe you're the target, please contact police immediately. We're cooperating fully with law enforcement." Riley spent the rest of the day researching the listener, looking for any information about the 17 murders he'd claimed. It was difficult. He'd said the police hadn't connected the cases, so there was no task force, no consolidated information. But Riley was good at research. By evening, she'd found them. 17 murders across 6 states over 7 years, all initially classified as accidents or ruled as undetermined. But when Riley looked at the details, patterns emerged. A woman in Oregon who'd fallen down her apartment stairs after confiding to a friend that she was terrified of falling. A man in Nevada who drowned in his backyard pool despite being a strong swimmer. His social media showed posts about his recurring nightmares of drowning. A woman in Texas who died of anaphylactic shock from bee sting, despite carrying an EpiPen. Her blog had detailed her severe allergy and her fear that she'd die from it someday. Each victim had explicitly documented a fear, a vulnerability, a weakness. And then they died in exactly that way, in circumstances that seemed coincidental enough that police hadn't looked deeper. The listener had been telling the truth. He listened to people's fears and made them come true. Riley looked at her own social media, her blog posts for her journalism class, her comments on true crime forums. What had she shared? What fears had she documented? Her heart sank as she found a blog post from 6 months ago. "My biggest fear is being stalked by someone I can't see, someone who knows everything about me but remains invisible. The violation of privacy, the feeling of being watched constantly, that's what really terrifies me." The listener wasn't just going to kill her. He was going to make her feel stalked first, make her live her worst fear before he ended it. Riley called the police again, this time armed with research. She spoke to Detective Sarah Kim, who actually listened, took notes, seemed to take the threat seriously. "We've been in contact with the FBI about this podcast episode," Kim said. "They're trying to trace the killer's communication, but he's using sophisticated routing to hide his location. The 72-hour deadline is in about 61 hours now. We can put your building under surveillance, but you can't protect me every second," Riley finished. "We'll do our best. In the meantime, don't go anywhere alone. Stay with friends or family if possible. Vary your routine. Don't do anything predictable." Riley packed a bag and went to her best friend Monica's apartment. She told Monica everything, showed her the evidence she compiled, and Monica's eyes grew wider with each detail. "This is insane. This is actually happening." "I know, and I have less than 3 days before." Riley couldn't finish the sentence. That night, Riley's phone buzzed with a notification. A new podcast episode had been posted. Episode 48, released early. Don't, Monica said, seeing Riley reaching for her earbuds. Don't listen to it. That's what he wants. But Riley had to know. She pressed play, and the listener's modulated voice filled her ears. Hello, Riley. Yes, I know you're listening. I know you went to police. I know you're at your friend Monica's apartment at 4432 Elm Street, apartment 3B. I know everything about you because you told me, not directly, but through everything you've shared online, every fear you've documented, every routine you've established. You made yourself visible to me. Riley's hand shook. How did he know she was at Monica's? How did he know she'd listened to the episode? Here's the thing about being stalked. Riley, the worst part isn't the violence at the end. It's the anticipation. The not knowing when or how. So I'm going to make you a deal. I'll give you a way out. If you can stop listening, if you can go the next 48 hours without listening to anything I put out, without checking any updates about me, without engaging with the story at all, I'll choose a different victim. Can you do that? Can you not listen? Monica grabbed the phone from Riley's hands and paused the episode. He's playing with you. Don't engage. Don't listen. That's what the police said. Don't be predictable. But Riley felt sick. He's already proven he can find me anywhere. And now he's saying the only way to survive is to not listen. But how do I know he's telling the truth? What if not listening is exactly what he wants? What if he's coming for me anyway, and this is just psychological torture? Over the next 2 days, Riley lived in a state of paranoia. She stayed with Monica, varied her routine, had police checking in regularly, but the not knowing was killing her. The listener had released 2 more episodes, both addressing her directly, but Riley hadn't listened to them. Monica had, reluctantly, just to see if there were any new threats, and reported that he kept taunting Riley, describing things about her current location that he shouldn't know. On the 3rd day, with just hours left until the 72-hour deadline, Riley's resolve broke. She waited until Monica was in the shower, put in her earbuds, and downloaded the latest episode. The listener's voice was almost gentle. Riley, you lasted longer than I thought you would. 59 hours without listening. But I knew you'd break. Everyone does. They can't help themselves. The fear of not knowing is worse than the fear of knowing. And now I know something even more important about you. You can't resist. You don't understand, have to analyze, have to engage. That's your greatest weakness. Not the stalking, not the fear. It's your inability to walk away from a mystery. Riley heard Monica's shower turn off and yanked out her earbuds, her heart pounding. And that's why the listener's voice continued to the single remaining earbud. I was never going to kill you, Riley. You were going to kill yourself. Riley looked down at her hands and saw they were shaking uncontrollably. Her vision blurred. The room spun. I told you I listened, Riley. I listened to everything, including the podcast reviews where you mentioned you have a severe anxiety disorder, where you detailed your panic attacks, where you described how they make you feel like you're dying. I didn't need to kill you. I just needed to trigger an attack severe enough to... Riley. Monica burst into the room as Riley collapsed. What did you do? Did you listen? Riley couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. The panic attack was the worst she'd ever experienced, her chest constricting, her vision tunneling. Monica called 911, held Riley through the attack, talked her through the breathing exercises her therapist had taught her. By the time paramedics arrived, Riley was breathing again, but barely. At the hospital, Detective Kim sat by Riley's bed. The FBI traced the listener's communications. They arrested someone an hour ago, a former IT specialist with access to data broker information and a sophisticated social media scraping operation. He'll be charged with terroristic threats, stalking, and they're building cases connecting him to those 17 deaths. Did he? Riley's voice was hoarse. Did he actually come for me? Or was it all psychological? We found evidence he was surveilling you and Monica, but no evidence he ever planned to physically harm you. His MO was exactly what he told you. He listened to people's fears and used them against them. In your case, he knew about your anxiety disorder and tried to weaponize it. Riley closed her eyes. She'd survived, but she'd also learned something terrible. Sometimes the worst monsters aren't the ones who use weapons. They're the ones who use your own mind against you. She never listened to true crime podcasts again, never shared personal information online again, became intensely private in ways that made her friends worry. Because Riley had learned the hard way that in the digital age, the most dangerous thing you can do is tell the world your fears. Someone is always listening, and they might just make those fears come true.